Hello, welcome to our Power is Within podcast. I'm your host, Chas Smith, and my mission for this podcast is to inspire you to take your power back and to realize that you're the healer that you've been looking for all along. We are capable of healing in mind, in body, and soul. And before I introduce our guest today, I did want to let you know that this episode is sponsored by Jeannie Cohen Coaching. Jeannie Cohen is a stress and mind body coach based out of LA. And if you aren't familiar with her, you can go back to episode 95 for Feeling Our Feelings with Jeannie as a guest on the show. It is one of my favorites because she does leave very practical action steps that we can begin implementing in our life right away to make positive impact. Jeannie herself spent 16 years battling fibromyalgia, chronic fatigue, and a myriad of other physical symptoms that left her physically and mentally exhausted. And she has healed herself completely and is now obsessed with getting her clients fast results through her one-on-one mind, body, and TMS coaching program. It's a 3-month program to give clients the support, consistency, and accountability they need to decrease stress, release stuck negative emotions, and finally heal their chronic pain. And she offers free 45-minute consult where together you will identify what is holding you back so that you can take the next steps in your healing. So go to the website, www.jeanniecohen.com, that's JeannieKeulwin.com, and book your free call today. Now, as mentioned in last week's episode, I have partnered with Kent Bassett, the producer of a film called This Might Hurt, and his team to offer you guys a complimentary streaming of the film for 2 weeks, which began last Tuesday. So if you have not yet watched this film, no worries. You still have an entire week to do so. And then we will finish off the 2 weeks with that live Q&A with Kent and another mind body coach, Michelle Wiggers. And I think it's going to be so much fun. The Q&A is going to be on January 17th at 7 p.m. So mark your calendars. If you cannot be there for the day of the live event, no worries. There will be a recording available just a few days after. As far as the film, if you are not familiar with it, this is a documentary following the life of several chronic pain clients who, after years of not having success in the traditional medicine model, they joined this program with Dr. Howard Schubiner, who was last week's guest, and they got to learn all about mind-body syndrome and how to unlearn their pain. I really loved the impact this film had and how insightful it is. So if you have not watched it, please do so. Okay. As far as our guest today, I am so excited to introduce you guys to Sean Fowler. His story is incredibly unique and beautiful, and this is actually his first time sharing it in this capacity. So yay for us. Now, Sean did suffer from chronic physical symptoms, particularly his lower back. And while he does mention this, and we do talk a little bit about it, we also talk a lot about how he suffered from severe PTSD and survivor guilt post-military after serving multiple deployments during war. And at the lowest point in his life, he could have chosen one path, but instead, he made a different decision to change the trajectory of his life. And through this choice, he is now serving a bigger life mission to help support thousands of other military men and women suffering from PTSD, depression, anxiety, suicide, and addiction. He found healing through horticulture, which I think is amazing because nature is a gift and there are an infinite number of ways that we can be inspired to heal, and there are an infinite number of things that can be therapeutic for us. For him, houseplants was a huge factor, and now he wants to share this message of possibility amongst his fellow soldiers and truly anybody out there who has struggled with mental challenges, suicidal thoughts, or have lost hope or a will to live. Please make sure to check out his mission and his fundraiser that he talks about in this episode and enjoy his story. Sean, thank you so much for being here with me today to share your story.
Hey, Jasmine, thank you.
Yeah, I'm really excited to get to have this conversation with you. I know for everybody who's listening that we're going to, a lot of my episodes have really focused on purely healing the physical body, which by now everybody who's listening knows that that's never just the case. Like when we have any kind of issues in our body, it's always more complex than that. And there's often tons of elements of healing the mental and spiritual side of things too. But for us today, I think we're going to really hone in and focus on the mental side of things and the mental aspect of healing, and have you talk about how through so many challenges in your life, you've still risen above, and some of the things that you've done to remove barriers to your power, self expression, and leadership. Does that sound good for you?
Yeah, that sounds great.
Awesome. So, I think what we're going to do is start out with you just kind of giving a little brief background about of your story and what you've been through. You are ex-military, and I think that we can set this up if people just kind of have an understanding of what you've been through and a little bit of your timeline. Does that work?
Yeah, that works for me.
Okay.
Okay, so hello. My name is Sean Fowler. I was born in Columbus, Ohio on March 5th, 1986. At 18 years old, I joined the U.S. Army Infantry in 2005. Um, I served total for about 26 months. I served total for almost 12 years. 26 months of that was spent in support of Operation Iraqi Freedom. Mostly I spent time in Baghdad, and then I also spent time north of Baghdad in Bakuba and the Diyala province. I was deployed from 2007 to 2008 and 2009 to 2010. And on my first deployment, I was on a rooftop in Baghdad where two 40-pound propane tanks exploded in an improvised explosive device incident. I was knocked unconscious and got shrapnel in my arm and my butt. I jokingly said later in reference to Forrest Gump that I never saw a nickel of that $1 million. Recovered, went back and finished the deployment, came back to Fort Lewis, Washington, where I was stationed with the 2nd Infantry Division, 4th Brigade, 138 Infantry Regiment. That was my first unit. Went back stateside for a year, back to Iraq, deployed again. When I got back, at that time, I started having some pretty significant issues. I was diagnosed with post-traumatic stress disorder due to some things that had happened, and some people that we had also lost over there. I dealt with a significant amount of survivor's guilt. And specifically what happened is one of the more kind of hairier incidents is I responded to an incident where a squad of ours that I was actually normally with, I was normally with them on the ground, but there were some shifts in the rotation due to some other injuries from my platoon leader actually stepping on an improvised explosive device and getting a D-cell battery in his thigh. I ended up being with another element that day. But while they were doing a key leader engagement at a school, talking about a contract to replace the windows at the equivalent of our elementary school, a suicide bomber, which was a guy dressed in an Iraqi army uniform, pulled up on one of our squads and blew himself up. We responded to that incident and did casualty evacuation for 3 people, one of which was 19 years old, and Ferrero, he had just gotten into country pretty recently, but the 3 guys, Nelson, Lee, and Ferrero, were killed that day. And that was where a lot of the survivor's guilt for me kind of originated from. And so, yeah. And then after my second deployment and then coming back to Fort Lewis, I was transferred to Fort Myer, Virginia, to the 3rd U.S. Infantry Regiment, the Old Guard. It was a much different mission. The mission there was more focused on ceremonial support in the Washington, D.C. area. Essentially, I was a dressed up lawn dart for the president at times, but it was a great experience. I got to march in Obama's 2nd inaugural parade, and the experiences that I had in Arlington National Cemetery doing full honors funerals and funerals for active duty members who were killed overseas, and seeing the impacts on families and on Gold Star mothers and on people's spouses. I mean, it really is hits close to home for me. So it was kind of everything kind of came full circle, in losing people overseas, and then also seeing what that looks like as people are entered into their final resting place. So I did that for about a year and a half. And then I went on a detail to Army congressional travel where I worked at the Pentagon for like a year and a half. Got to travel a bunch of different places with congressional delegations that required non-commissioned officer support. I was enlisted. I never highlighted that, but I was enlisted in the Army. So during that detail, I finally had a chance to go and like talk to a doctor. I was not so much in the day-to-day grind of mission first and suck it up and drink water, kind of drive on, take a knee, which is a lot of the mindset that the U.S. Army infantry kind of touts as being strength. So I went and did a bunch of physical therapy. I got a bunch of injections in my back to try to deal with it. Eventually, I had a lumbar fusion on my L3, L4, and L4, L5, and L5 S1 were fused, and that was one of the hardest things I've ever gone through. The recovery was lengthy. I got addicted to the painkillers they prescribed, which I believe was Dilaudid and OxyContin. When I quit taking those, I got really, really sick for several days. I hit rock bottom. I definitely had suicidal ideations. I did think about killing myself in that moment. And really, like, I think that was the first time that I hit rock bottom, as I would describe it, where I just felt like I had nothing left, and I didn't really want to keep going, and I had lost a bunch of weight. Physically, I was so different than where I was. I mean, I was doing CrossFit and lifting weights and putting weights over my head, doing Olympic lifting, and then I was just completely broken. Like I couldn't walk for at least 4 or 5 weeks, and then the recovery was super slow. But in those moments, I kind of stopped and remembered all the people who sacrificed so much for me to get to where I was, and I literally picked myself up by my bootstraps and said, like, this isn't it. I mean, I this isn't the life that I want. This isn't the life that I need, and I just started taking actions to heal and to heal physically. I went and I talked to a therapist. I did cognitive behavioral health therapy for like maybe like 5 or 6 months, and really came to a better place. Came to understand and reframe everything as post traumatic growth. Started making a lot of progress. Got out of the Army, got a job for the federal government, working for the Federal Emergency Management Agency as a policy analyst in the response directorate. I went back to school at George Mason University. And I finished that semi recently in 2021 with a degree in an undergraduate in business. Yeah, and then there were a couple other things that I did along the way, but I just want to go ahead and pause there and see if you have any questions.
Yes. Yeah, thanks. That's so great. That was very thorough. I appreciate that. Um, yes, I have questions. So, I guess just for a little bit of clarity, it sounds like you were actually diagnosed with PTSD rather early on in your military career, but it wasn't till much later that you went to CBT and got help, or as you said, you hit the rock bottom, which was after the back surgery. So a few things I'm wondering is, how did you manage to like cope through all those years that you were still um, heavily involved in military and had such a huge responsibility on your shoulders while also suffering?
That's a really great question. And one thing I've really learned as a military service member is I had integrity in the sense that I served my country. However, I lacked a significant amount of integrity in my personal life, and I was the kind of person who would just say it's fine, I'm good, like nothing's wrong, and I wasn't in touch with my feelings, I wasn't in my body. I was in a sense projecting on the world my idea of what I thought a broken, wounded veteran was, and how I needed to show up in the world. And part of that, I think, was telling myself, I got this. Like, if I admit that there's something wrong, then I'm weak. If I admit that there's something wrong, then, like I didn't do my job, or like I wasn't enough. And it took a while for me to finally realize that like it was okay to seek help. And even though kind of earlier on in my career, I did talk to somebody, it was never really fully an honest conversation. Like I was always holding back certain parts of who I was, and maybe not who I was, but what had happened. Um, and I think that kind of limited the effect of therapy earlier on in my military career.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like you really just repressed in order to survive, which is like a common thing that people will do is, I mean, they say that's like a coping mechanism that even if like even young, people who have had really intense young childhoods, like a lot of times they repress in order to cope and to just keep going in order to, yeah, essentially survive.
Yeah, yeah, I completely agree.
Yeah. And it's interesting because you had a lot of back in the day, you had a lot of those old kind of dogmatic belief systems, like the thought that if I admit something's wrong, I'm weak, or I'm like, like, this is common also with men. I mean, but women do feel this often too, but very common with men, like can't show signs of weakness, can't have emotion, can't, admit that you're feeling affected by what you've been through, and that all those shoulds show up in our life, and that can be really heavy and hard to deal with. A little bit of toxic positivity, like I got this, it's fine, no big deal. Which even something I've learned in my own life from my childhood is how incredibly um, impactful it can be, and not necessarily a good way, to downplay the hard experiences we've been through, like the adult that just totally dismisses the childhood they went through, like, oh, it's no big deal, it's fine, it's good, no worries. But yet that little inner child's like, no, why aren't you listening to me? Like, this shit was hard, just acknowledge me.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So I'm also curious about the timeline, or a little bit more about your back surgery. What led into that? Like, were you experiencing back pain for a prolonged period of time? Did you have a specific injury that you're aware of, or was it more just back pain creeping on and progressively getting worse?
Yeah, so the incident that I referenced that happened on the roof in Baghdad, which at the time it was described as the Sunni Triangle, which was they called it the Triangle of Death, and it was that year there were the most amount of military deaths, and there were also the most amount of people in the country at that time, um, and including tons of defense contractors. Um, so in that incident on the roof, when I was knocked out and injured myself, they think that that may have misaligned my spine, because pretty much after that I had intermittent back pain, and adding on additional army stuff, carrying around gear, ruck marches, sleeping out in the field, training exercises, a lot of strenuous PT. Then I eventually it just got worse. I was having pain in my legs. To anybody out there having back pain, I am so compassionate and sympathetic. Uh, Chronic pain issues writ large, I'm so compassionate about because it was like this nagging pain where it was always there and it was always like a distraction. So I felt like I wasn't fully happy in my life. And it's such a reminder that if we don't have our health, I mean, we don't have much. And I wasn't able to focus on so many things because of that pain.
Yeah, I mean, pain can be debilitating and distracting, and pain can lead to anxiety, depression. I mean, people who literally sacrifice their life because they're in so much physical pain, like it's real. It's a real challenge, which is one of the reasons why I have the podcast to help, inspire people hope to overcome pain.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, people totally can. I mean, I had to go from feeling a certain kind of way about my body and what I could do physically to that being completely different.
Hmm.
But the only thing I really struggled with, I mean, at the end of it was my idea of what that meant because there was so much I could do. And when seeing those opportunities, that I could, okay, I can't do this exercise, but I can do this. I
Mm,
can't do this, but I can walk. And if I can take a step, then I can put one foot in front of the other and I can go somewhere. I can build on this. And it took a while to kind of build that resiliency.
That's such a huge, awesome point that you're making because it's so true. Because I can attest to um, sometimes when you have pain that does limit you and there are things you can't do, it's so easy for us to like get so caught up in what we can't do and then like devalue ourselves more because we can't do X, Y, and Z. But God, it's so powerful when we can reframe and focus on what we can do, like how you just said. Um, I think of that all the time, like, okay, well, maybe I'm not able to run right now, but I can walk every day. And that is such a gift because there's people who can't do that. And it's not to compare yourself to what somebody who has it worse, but I think it's just to say, like, I have this capacity in within me still, and I could beat myself up and dwell on the fact that maybe I'm not capable of sustaining running, but like, wow, I can literally walk and be outside and get from A to B, and I can go experience life and go to a park or a beach and see things. And I think it changes everything about our life when we're focused on what we can do rather than what we can't. And from there we can build that list of what we can do.
I agree so much. And I mean, looking at things like they're an opportunity is a powerful, transformative perspective shift. And I think for me, it's like how I also talk about it. I mean, I say, oh, like I have to go do physical therapy, but this sucks. Like I used to be able to do so much, but looking at it now and standing in where I'm at now and what's possible, it's like, you know, I get to do physical therapy, I get to try to do this. Like there's somebody out there, and I do think comparison sometimes is the death of uniqueness. And but it is also kind of helpful for me sometimes to realize like, you know, I could physically have nothing. Like I could not be able to do anything at all. And so trying to find like what you can do in that PT process and that physical therapy process and just be present to that, I think is so important.
Absolutely. I love that. Looking at the challenge as an opportunity, and absolutely language is so powerful, and that simple reframe from I have to I get to, right? And we can equate that to absolutely anything in life. I mean, we can change our entire perspective around something like our job if every day we say, "Oh, yeah, if somebody's like, "Oh, can you get together today?" "Oh, no, I get to go to work today actually," instead of, "Oh, I have to go to work today." It changes the entire energetics around the expression.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's huge. And my guess is that you didn't always get to see life through this lens. This has been a growth process that you've been on.
Yeah, I mean, looking at sometimes in my life, I mean, there were times where, and this is such a powerful thing that I've learned is there was times in my life where I wasn't making choices. My life was making decisions for me. And I mean that in the sense of like, I didn't really understand fully the context of certain things, and especially certain areas where I had lacked integrity in. I truly believe that by not telling the truth, by lying, by doing people wrong, certain things, not having integrity, I believe that creates huge blind spots in people's lives. And then I was justifying, why I'm not going to therapy. I'm justifying why I'm going out and drinking till I'm brown out like every weekend. And I'm justifying why after surgery I'm still taking pills even though I don't really need them, and the pain isn't that bad, but I'm doing it because it makes me feel good.
Yeah. 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 So it's really, that's really good perspective and a really good outlook and ability to like reflect back and see, those, that different perspective, if you will.
Yeah.
That's huge growth. As far as like the surgery, I'm curious. So you had mentioned you at one point, because you were kind of at one point kind of beating yourself up because you were looking at how you had gotten skinny and you weren't able to do all these things, but there was a point that you were really fit and you were active, doing Olympic lifting, CrossFitting, all that stuff. Were you doing that while you had the back pain still, prior to surgery? Or was this like even earlier on in life?
Yeah, I was. I mean,
You were.
yeah, I mean, I was playing hurt. I think not everybody, I mean, I don't know how everybody handles stuff in the military, but I avoided going to sick call. I avoided going to doctors. I didn't get looked at for anything that I had injured at certain points. And, I think while the military has made great strides in some contexts, probably more so within some units than others, within mine, there was a stigma around getting help and talking to somebody. So or maybe, and maybe part of that too is also my idea of what it meant further to like, you know, be a tough guy, like be a strong like army dude persona, which a lot of that wasn't true or even real. So yeah,
Yeah, but it is a stigma. I mean, I know tons of people who are ex-military and it is something that kind of is almost at in some regard like drilled into you, like I see people who want to hold themselves in this very high standard and regard that do want to avoid like being in a sense real, or they do perceive that there's a weakness to feeling an emotion or to admitting that you need help, because they want, I mean, you're so used to being the help.
yeah, yeah,
It's a lot to overcome for sure. And not everybody is so lucky to have, whether it's like the right help in the right time or the right epiphanies or the right capacity to seek that help eventually and to overcome those challenges. And so that's why it's really exciting to have you here to share your story, because I know that the more people that get to hear your story and witness you coming out on the other side, it will inspire hope for them to be able to navigate their lives differently and create that possibility as well. Um, so after after back surgery, your rock bottom, your epiphany, like I'm not doing this life. Like this is my life's going to be different. Kudos, that's awesome. I wonder, because I wonder if was there any point where you're like, people literally ended up like surviving and I or dying and I survived all these things. Like this is not the way I'm going out. Did you have that mindset at any point?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I did. I thought, well, so many people they did so much for me to get here,
Hmm.
and while my some of like what I think about the war has changed significantly from when I was 18. I justify things that we were there for each other, and those guys would have taken a bullet for me, and I the same, and so I really did, I really, and I still do. It's one of the it's my strongest call to action, is helping military families and veterans, and um, yeah, I mean, I realized like it would in a sense be selfish of me to not keep going and live a life that I love and that I author, and honor their memory, and live my life fully for them.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I'm like, as I hear your story, I'm like, well, the universe clearly had a plan for you, you know? You dodged the bullet in many, many situations and got to rise above. And now you have this passion that drives you forward. And I have no doubt that that was part of a bigger plan. So I want to talk about some of what you have going on now. I've obviously discovered you through Instagram and your absolute passion for plants and growing plants and gardening. Um, I'm curious how, and I know that's been part of what's really helped you on your recovery journey, the recovery and growth side of things. So, how did you even get into plants and discover this passion for plants and discover that it was very supportive therapeutically?
Yeah, yeah. I'm actually really excited about this. Uh, it's really kind of a random story. So I got out of the army in 2016. After I had this epiphany, I made some serious changes in my life. I broke up with the girl that I was living with at the time. Uh, I saw just more for myself in general, something different for myself. I went back to school. I moved and eventually ended up in DC. I was living in Virginia at the time in 2016. But uh, so I was on Bumble. I was single. I was dating. Um, I went out with this girl who got me a bonsai tree as a gift. And I just kind of fell in love. I had one house plant at the time that I bought from Harris Teeter, the grocery store. And she got me this plant, this bonsai tree, and I was in uh, a public speaking class at George Mason University, and I needed to give a short recorded speech where I was teaching somebody about something, and so I bought this book on bonsai and I learned about it, and then I gave a speech on teaching people about bonsai. Uh, I went way over on time and I actually got a terrible grade. But I was just kind of left like mystified and kind of genuinely drawn to and felt connected to gardening and horticulture, and just kind of had this magical kind of moment like connecting with plants and realizing like, wow, how do I make this thing grow, like what's going on in the pot. And I was really left with more questions than answers, and then things just kind of escalated from there.
That's awesome. So it was love at first sight with a
not,
plant.
not in a dating situation, yeah, but the plants for sure.
And for those of you who aren't familiar with Sean on Instagram, that one lonely bonsai has now grown to like hundreds of plants.
Yep, over 150 now.
Indoor, all indoor.
Yep, all indoor.
Well, the cool thing is that sometimes plants can't. They're so beautiful. I'm obsessed with plants too, obviously. But sometimes if they're not arranged correctly, they can feel rather cluttery. But I've seen pictures and I can witness that yours are so artistically displayed and creatively and beautifully organized that it's anything but cluttery. It's absolutely just beautiful art.
Thanks.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
I it's a lifetime thing for me. I'm a big advocate for green spaces and the science-backed benefits of horticulture. It's there, it's a thing. I think gardening, the act of gardening helps people. It reduces cortisol, it reduces stress. Being in green spaces promotes productivity and reduces stress. And I think it reinforces that super important connection to nature that sometimes, especially those of us who live in cities, we don't have as much.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's very true. I mean, I could not imagine living in a space without living plants. I would just feel so sad and it would just be weird.
Right?
And I'm glad that you found it as a passion. And yeah, it's great to see like a man that takes a passion for something like plants, because I think that's one of the things that so many people are like, oh, that's like a ladies or girls, girl, like it's like such an old mentality. The, oh, that's like a girl thing or something.
Oh yeah, yeah. We can. Yeah, we can. We talk about that.
Sure.
That's not true. I was a combat veteran. I have a beard. I love gardening. It's something that guys should get into. I mean, stop resisting the yoga mat too. Like we can all do these things. I think guys go out, get a manicure, pedicure. Like there's no. I don't think there's much sense in defining myself completely separate from women. I think that doing things that are considered like less manly, it doesn't mean anything. I mean, gardening is such a natural thing for all humans to do, I think, and shouldn't be mutually exclusive to non men.
Yeah, it doesn't make anyone less manly. I mean, I think all things, we can get into all things. Like, why we going to put like it's 2022. We don't need to put like a defining label on what it should be like. I love power tools. That's historically, you see predominantly like men in carpentry and construction roles. But man, I love learning that stuff. I love grabbing tools. I love building things. So it's all for everybody.
Very cool. Yeah, I'm terrible at stuff like that. So,
Well, we all start somewhere. You probably used to be terrible at growing a plant, keeping it alive.
oh my gosh, yes. I am always trying to tell people, look, there is no green thumb or black thumb. There is just plants and the soil and the sunlight requirements and like figuring out the plant. And then sometimes I think it's establishing like just a better relationship with the plant of how are you interacting with it when you clean it? Like how are you observing it? Um, but yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I say the same thing. I'm like, you don't have a black thumb. You're not like gonna kill things. You've just never giving it an honest chance. I'm like, all they need is like a little water, a little sun, and a lot of love. That's it.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
you got to find the right place, the right plant for you and the place where you're at, your environment. But yeah, I totally agree.
Yeah. And I'm so glad that you have found something like this that's so easily accessible and so a part of like nature and like natural life and natural healing that has really supported you on this journey to really help be a therapy for you. That's really awesome.
Yeah, I think, and I'm very excited to share how my love for horticulture has grown into something that I feel so strongly about. I want to share it with others and other veterans, and I think that those the metaphors we can draw on for how we take care of ourselves and how we take care of plants, I think are so significant. And I mean, one good example is I like to use this one all the time is my garden, my plants are such a reflection of me sometimes in the sense of like if they're not doing so great, maybe like I'm not doing so great, like I'm feeling shut down, I'm depressed, I'm isolating in my life. And that to me is one of those great metaphor reminders is like if something's wrong with us and you're not feeling like you're in life, you're feeling sick, something's wrong. I mean, I think we really have to stop, really look at what's there and what's showing up, what the impacts are, and figure out how to take actions like we would to fix our plants, we have to take actions to help ourselves. And to drink water, you have to water your plant. You should also drink water yourself. Your plant needs sun. Well, we do too. To get outside and walk around. Like I'm so into sharing those metaphors in ways that help other people heal.
I love that so much. And it's so true because, like, I mean, nature is a really honest, like, very truthful place to look for, yeah, I mean, for insights into our absolute well being, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's so awesome. So, just out of curiosity for fun, what year was it that you got this first bonsai plant?
The first plant I got was in 2017.
Woo! So from 2017 to 2022, 5 years, you've accumulated 150 plants.
Yep.
Some might call that an obsession, but I would say it's a rather good one.
Yeah, it's been a really healthy habit.
Yeah, sometimes I'm like, don't take me to a garden, don't take me to a nursery. I can't go down the plant aisle. You
Oh
got to
my gosh,
smack my
yeah.
hand.
I will buy a plant in Trader Joe's. They've so strategically placed that plant section.
Oh my gosh, that's so fun. I love Trader Joe's. Oh, okay. All right. So I could talk to you about plants all day, but I want to keep going on here because I know you have so much good stuff to share still. On a side note, I am really curious. You mentioned to me that you did a Vipassana, which for anyone who is not familiar with that is a 10-day silent retreat. I'm curious how that impacted your life.
Oh my gosh! So shout out to my friend Nima. He's the one that introduced me to Vipassana meditation. He's on Instagram at Nima the artist. One of my closest friends. He's kind of been the person who has suggested many things to me that have been super helpful. So I just want to note that. Um, so Vipassana, I got into meditation through like doing it at a yoga class and had like a good experience, and so became curious. So that's kind of how I got introduced to meditation, and then over time, like I've had more of a dedicated practice at times, but I signed up. I went to the center that's in Pennsylvania, and I did a 10-day Vipassana. I don't know the exact translation, but I know generally Vipassana means like to see things as they are. It's, I believe, the oldest recorded meditation style as taught by Gautama the Buddha, and the guy who they teach the content on now. He he brought um, he brought the practice back where he was at. Um, yeah, I can't remember the history of it, but anyways, the actual experience. I mean, I would describe it as like the hardest, easiest thing I've ever done. Because in fact, you're just sitting there for uh, intermittently. I mean, I would say I was meditating for upwards of 8 hours a day, very regimented with breaks to rest and to eat. You take you take an oath to not speak. Um, Men and women are separate. There's a common like meditation room. They call it the Dhamma room. And then there was 3 sittings there per day, which were sits of strong uh like you weren't going to move. You did your very best to not move, and each sit was an hour. um so it was really intense. There were moments where I would just start crying, thinking about things that I hadn't really thought about in like quite some time. And I think that over those days, I really peeled back the onion per se of all the thoughts and thinking and the things all in our heads going everywhere, and really just felt alive, like felt in my life. It's I feel grateful to feel like this generally every day at times during the day, but I think the dedicated practice, the not talking, um, the being removed from an environment, I think is a huge part because there's not much city noise around. You don't have your cell phone. There's no real stimuli that we have every day from like the news feed and all that. So it really was an opportunity for me to kind of just really strengthen my meditation practice and um, really get a tool. A really highly meditation, I think, is a highly effective tool to purify yourself, and I think that it takes time to build like a muscle. I don't think most people start and are just amazing at it. I take the same approach to Instagram. I think you got to suck less. Um, but it was a really powerful experience, and I think the impacts for that going back into life. I think that the way I would describe it is I untied a lot of knots that were in my head, and what I would say is a mental knot is like thinking something so true, right? Something happened, and then I think something about it, and my story about what that means sometimes collapses so quickly. As humans, we don't even realize that we've so strongly now formed a thought or an opinion, but that's not necessarily true. And Vipassana, when unwinding those knots, I think you're really just present to life, which is so beautiful that it's like I mean it brings me to my knees, even like like thinking about.
Mm. Yeah. And you had mentioned early on in the interview that there was a point in your life where, when you were going through all the heaviness, that you were so disconnected from your body, you weren't really connected to your like emotions. I mean, what a way to like really reconnect with your body, right? To just be present with every sensation in your body with no distractions, nowhere to run, there's nowhere to hide from your thinking, from your being, from your sensations, from your body. You're just with it and learning how to neutralize it, learning how to be with whatever is without the judgment.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, exactly.
It's actually a tool that they use for chronic pain sufferers called they do so you do somatic tracking, where you're creating an indifference, where you're literally just tracking the sensations in our body that we have deemed to be painful. We call it pain, but it's teaching us that what we call pain is actually just a sensation, albeit an unpleasant or unwanted sensation. It is just a sensation, and learning how to just be with that and send a message of safety into the brain to remind the brain that like this is just a sensation and it's safe and it's okay. Just creating that indifference. And that alone has pretty profound impact on minimizing what we call pain in the body. A lot of people have a lot of success um, toning down that pain when they can get really present with it, like in that way, in that safe space.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It really does. It really, yeah. I mean, I learned so much in the teachings. Every night there's like a discourse, and the guy who brought the practice from Burma to India, that's the history that I forgot. Um, he would talk about things, and I learned that a lot of the sources of my unhappiness were craving certain things, and realizing that you're always going to crave more. Like it's never going to be enough, right? Like, and then the other thing that was making me really unhappy was aversion to like talking about things, feeling things, doing that thing that like you should do, or you wronged that person, you should reach out and make it right. Avoiding that kind of stuff. I think those are the two main causes of unhappiness that I learned about.
That's beautiful. That's powerful. Yeah, that's awesome. So you still have a meditative practice in your life?
Yeah, I do. I mean, I will admit that I have a calendar event once in the morning, once in the evening for an hour that I do not always hold. Um, However, I'm striving to have full integrity and maintaining the full scope of my meditation practice, which is 2 hours a day. But I do, at a minimum, try to meditate every day. Yes.
That's beautiful. And you know what? Not always showing up for those full 2 hours is also okay, especially if in those moments you're practicing compassion and grace for yourself,
Yeah.
Because something I've learned is I can have these beautiful goals and I can work towards them. And every day, all I can do is my very best. And in the meantime, I can also have grace and compassion. And it's about the big picture, like how am I showing up overall? If one day I miss something that is important to me in my daily self-care rituals, and just learning how to have forgiveness and just not beat myself up for it or put a demand on myself that, of perfection.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's also super important. Speaking of meditating daily, do you have any other daily rituals or commitments that overall try to keep to yourself to keep yourself healthy in mind, body, and soul?
Well, I don't know if it's so much a commitment, but one of the most impactful things that I've experienced, which I'm still in right now, I'm in the last part of the curriculum, which is called the Self Expression and Leadership Program. It's the landmark curriculum. It's a curriculum for powerful living. I usually caveat this by saying I don't represent the company at all, because sometimes people get a little bit weirded out by the cost of it. Um, I just caveated that, I share with people because I know the outcomes are positive and because I know it's really helpful. And the reason why it has a cost is because the people that work there are super amazing people who are out there really making a difference in people's lives in a very real and tangible way. And I would be remiss to not share it because it changed everything in my life, and in a positive way. Every aspect of my life improved. But I did this thing. It's called the Landmark Forum, in 2019, per the recommendation of my friend Nima. He also told me about this, and uh, basically, what it is it's like a 3 day virtual or in person facilitated transformative learning experience where they make certain distinctions that led me to understand that life is an opportunity, and that you know people can declare victory over the past and constitute themselves as a new possibility, and people can go back and restore their integrity and make things right. And when people really get like what's in the way, right, what's like right there on your heart that you want to do, or you want to say but you're not doing it, when people get that out of the way and they're just in life like acting in action, it's the most beautiful thing. And like I got my family back, like I got relationships with my family, I got promoted in my job. um i I became an influencer on Instagram because I was able to self-express. I was able to feel okay with just being me. um and that kind of just set like off a domino effect in my life that led me to doing more of the curriculum. And I went to the advanced course, which is the next part. And then I went to, now I'm in the self-expression and leadership program, and the outcomes of that have just been so exciting and so inspiring.
That is such a beautiful gift. That is amazing, and it's so true. About being able to step into living our truth and being authentically aligned. And when we can do that, I do think that it opens infinite doors and possibility.
I completely agree. And I mean, what is better than realizing that as human beings, I mean, we're a possibility of possibilities. Like sometimes you don't know what's going to happen when you do something, but I feel like taking action is the only real way to produce results. And to like see other people like fully in their life and like to see them like light up for stuff. I mean, that to me is like the greatest gift, like the greatest, some of the greatest, most authentic joy and most authentic experiences that I've had in my life.
Mm, that's so beautiful. I love how you just said we're a possibility of possibilities. I wrote that one down. That's awesome. It's so true. And I'm so curious because it sounds like this landmark forum really had a massive impact in a positive way in your life. And this was all from only 3 days, 3 intensive days.
Yeah, the timelines for the advanced course are a little different, and the self expression and leadership program goes over the course of several months.
Hmm.
Um, but the forum, I mean, at the end of the forum, standing in what was possible for me. I mean, I don't know, everything just seemed like to open up. Like
Mm,
I felt lighter. I had some conversations with my parents that maybe I had before, but it wasn't like I wasn't being straight with myself, you know? Like it kind of ties back to what I mentioned, like the stories we make up for the
yep.
things that happen. I wasn't being straight with myself about the things that had happened, but in doing the work and getting straight with myself, I was able to like get straight with like other people and really be a powerful force in life. And yeah, I mean it's super transformative, and I'm beyond grateful for my friend Nima who introduced me to it, and for the people there that are really on the ground, like they're really on the court doing work to make to help people realize their like that their full potential and really improve their performance in whatever area of life they want to improve in.
Hmm. That's so awesome. So, okay. It sounds like, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but it sounds like some of the impact that Landmark has had in your life might have contributed to leading you into the work you're doing right now that you're really passionate about, that you've briefly mentioned, that I definitely want to give you a space to talk about, which is this nonprofit work. You you have created your own nonprofit, as well as you are working side by side with another nonprofit on a mission, which is, it says, Operation Houseplant Healing and delivering care packages.
Yes. So,
Yeah.
yeah, just to clarify, I have a goal of starting a nonprofit. Right now, I'm in the process of defining the what we would do, and I'm in the process of finding people who want to be on the board with me and be a part of this mission and part of the work. So that's very early
Okay.
in those phases, but I am working with a nonprofit, and so the just to give a little bit of background, my brothers and sisters in arms are dying. Around 7,000 people died in the post 9/11 wars, while over four times that amount have taken their own lives. Per a Brown University study on the cost of war, 30,177 service members from the post 9/11 wars have killed themselves. In the
Wow.
near certain future, if myself and others don't continue to do stuff in this space to stand up to the broad mental health crisis in our communities, our friends are going to continue to die. And the possibility that I've created to address this near certain future is to launch Operation Houseplant Healing, which is an initiative to help our heroes grow and prevent suicide. Um, I'm working with Lively Root, which is a online plant store with operations. They're headquartered in San Diego and have operations on both coasts. And Balanced Veterans Network, which is an informational nonprofit slash community that connects veterans and military families with life-saving resources, including alternative medicines like therapeutically delivered psilocybin treatments. Um, and we're working to deliver 30,177 care packages to military families consisting of plants and resources that connect people to the scientifically backed benefits of horticulture and provide opportunities for them to connect with Balanced Veterans Network and their community of people that really care about their long-term health and future.
That is amazing. Did you come up with this on your own?
So shout out to Landmark, so the self-expression and leadership program. It is something that I came up with, but the nature of the work led me. So basically, like it's a community project from the program, and
Mhm.
the intent was to take two communities that we already have in our life to make a powerful impact in another. And I've been a brand ambassador for Lively Root for I think about a year, maybe over a year now.
Mhm.
And I was connected with Ron Millward, who is BVN's president on Instagram. And so I just started reaching out and I started sharing the call to action that I'd realized through this work. I started sharing what I thought we could do and really got a community of just amazing people together towards accomplishing this mission and towards achieving the goal. And we're making a ton of progress. Everyone's agreed on the terms. We're in the middle of finalizing the contracts. We're getting the website and the fundraising page done. Looking to connect with sponsors. Looking to connect with other veteran organizations who can help share the information of those who they serve, so they can get care packages and just to help share the project.
I love this. And I'm guessing that the number of care packages that you have set as your goal is a reflection of how many men and or women we have lost from suicide post 9/11 war, correct?
Yep. From that Brown University study, and that statistic actually is completely understated in many contexts because not every drug overdose is counted as a suicide.
Right. Right. Yeah. Yeah. That's really beautiful. This is a really cool testament then to the value that's come from the investment that you've made in yourself with this program.
Thank you.
Yeah. And very creative. I love it. And I look forward to continuing to hear more about how it progresses. I am curious if you have clarity around what your mission is for your own personal nonprofit, Vet Grows. Is it all interconnected or is it something separate?
So the nonprofit that I want to start, I want to create opportunities for growth and mental freedom for other veterans and military families.
Hmm.
And I'm working to create programs that will take multiple approaches towards preventing suicide and addressing many of the mental health challenges occurring in the veteran community today. One of which would be to get other veterans to go to Landmark. The Landmark Forum, and I convinced my first person, my old platoon sergeant from Fort Myer, John Worth. He signed up and is going to go. I'm very excited about that. Um,
Yay.
but yeah, it's still very much being developed. But I know that I can't be. I'm not the kind of person who realized certain things, realized how significant this crisis is for people who I served with. I mean, these people are my heroes. Every time I think about another veteran out there just like depressed, like thinking about killing themselves, putting a gun to their head. I mean, I have friends right now that are in crisis that I'm trying to reach out to. And it's a very real, very visceral issue that it draws me back into action every single time. And I've learned that, things don't have to be perfect to share. You can just share things, and allowing other people to really like sharing and then listening for what showed up for other people is how any of this became possible, because the community around it is enabling, it's going to enable the success of the project, and just like being creating that possibility for people to enroll into has just been such a powerful and moving experience for me that I'm okay. Like at the end of it, my name doesn't have to be on it at all. I want to like give many parts of this to the nonprofit just to use. And we're actually in Balanced Veterans Network building a longer term horticulture healing program. So I'm very excited to see where everything goes with them and with creating my own nonprofit.
That is really exciting. I'm just really excited for you. And my guess is um, that this is probably really therapeutic in its own way. Like it's giving you it's momentum, it's passion, it's drive, it's something to like get up every day and be excited about and look forward to and moving forward and creating. So all of that has to be an also positive therapeutic impact in your life as well.
Oh my one of the it's I've talked to guys recently who I haven't talked to in over a decade, and I realized like how important it was for me to have them in my life and hearing their stories. I mean, it's hearing my own story, and like we get out, we lose those connections. We don't talk as much, but being able to connect with them now in the present moment and share and like both the good times and the bad, and be just a person who's out here telling people, hey, you don't have to live in the past anymore. Like you really can say like, I'm declaring victory over this. I'm not going to let the past show up in my present. I'm going to show up in the present now and do things to create new possibilities for myself and in my life. Like, yeah, it's every time I talk to a veteran, I'm pulled back into life in powerful and meaningful ways. Like, and I mean, I'm inspired. I'm inspired every single day by the stories of people who sacrifice so much and their spouses, the caregivers. My sister, she's a nurse for the VA who, in part, got started with that work because of me to help veterans. And so I'm inspired every day by like their sacrifice and their service. And I have friends who still serve, and I'm so grateful to be connected with them and have them be a part of Operation Houseplant Healing. And yeah, I mean, it really does give me a reason every single day to wake up and be like, you know what, like life is a little bit easier if you can live it, for something bigger than yourself. Like when I was in the military and getting out, for a lot of guys and girls and people, we end up lacking that purpose and that direction, and we lose sight of the fact that we were probably leaders at one point. At least the military does a great job of creating leaders,
Right.
to an extent. And so being able to be a leader in the military community now, it's given my life so much meaning and filled me with so much hope.
I love that so much. And there's a really powerful word that you mentioned at one point that I wanted to highlight because it's so, so powerful. And it was connection. You said so much about being able to just be connected with these people, whether they're in the military still or ex-military or, significant others and all of that. And that connection is a very, very, very powerful healing tool that's often undervalued. And you made this great point that so many men and or women get out of military and then they go back into life and create a new life, and there's so often a lack of connection with the people that they stood beside through those really hard times. And I think when we can get back in connection and have that space where we can feel heard or understood, that's really powerful in and of itself.
It really is. It really is, and I'm very excited to be working on projects to help these people and the veterans of my community and their families. Yeah, it's been so powerful, and I mean, I just I couldn't be more grateful to be a part of the solution, and um, yeah, I'm driven every day by knowing that I've been there, by knowing that I felt so bad about myself that I thought, like I'll just kill myself. And that to me, just to think that somebody feels that bad, and it just, it gets me every time. And I'm like, okay, I got to get to work. Like I got to reach out to these people. I got to get in their faces and say, hey, listen, you can make a difference. You can make a change. And I think sometimes people just need to find better perspective and further, like, taking the time to really look at what's going on and really think, like, what tools can I get to help me, get back into being present with my life, get back to being like in my body. And whether that's going to the gym, going to see a therapist, finding some sort of curriculum like Landmark do, practicing meditation. I mean, just doing something where you're at, and I think everybody deserves that. Every living being deserves to be happy and to feel free. I really believe that.
Well, I agree too. I absolutely agree. That is some really solid advice, but I was going to see if you also had just any other advice or suggestions that you want to impart on anyone who this podcast episode might fall into and they're listening right now and they might be struggling with severe anxiety, severe depression, PTSD, or even suicidal thoughts. Like what would you say to them?
I would say you're perfect, whole, and complete where you're at. You know, there's nothing wrong with anyone necessarily, and how we apply those stories about things that happen to us, and I think that's what is really being struggled with sometimes. And so I would just say, if you're thinking about killing yourself, please don't do it. Like, if nobody else said it, like, I need you around, I need you in life. And like, I think that people are a powerful opportunity for something more, something good. And when people finally like get to that point and they're able to do these things, I mean, it's inspiring beyond words. And so I stand for people in their lives, sometimes even when they're not willing to stand for their own. And I think that, just like take a step back from that ledge, go and talk to somebody, please. Like, call the suicide hotline if you're in crisis. Like, go and talk to a friend, really go and talk to a therapist, and just take steps, day by day. Like, I know that even though right now things might seem like, gloom and doom and so much, it's so sad. It's like, this is it. There's nothing past this. But like, behind every cloudy day, there's a bright and sunny day awaiting. And like, I believe that like through the right amount of work and effort and really taking action in your life, that you can get to that bright and sunny day.
Mm, thank you so much for sharing that. You are a gift. You really are. And I'm so thrilled to have somebody like you in the world who is showing up, who is seeing the beauty in the people around him and taking action. Because, as you said, taking action is how we make change. And I love that you have turned your biggest challenges in life into the most beautiful opportunities to give back and to support others and to continue moving forward in your journey. And I'm so grateful to get to be here and have you here with me to share your story. I'm grateful to get to be a part of sharing your story and everything you're doing. So thank you so much for being willing to speak up and share your story. And thank you for what you're doing. And thanks for being here. And I do want to give you the floor space to let people who are listening right now know where they can learn more about these care packages and about the resources that you're putting together. Like, where can people support this mission and learn more about it to support it?
Yeah. So you're welcome. And thank you so much for having me on the show. Thank you for being the kind of person who's trying to share stories, and it's not just trying, but you're sharing stories of from people that can help other people. I mean, that's so meaningful. And like, thank you for, being a kind of person who's out here making a difference. And yeah, I'm going to be sharing a lot more. The website will be up at some point in the near future. It's going to be operationhouseplанthealing.com or houseplанthealing.com. So keep an eye out for that. For more immediate updates, follow me on Instagram at Sean Fowler. It's just my name. I'll be sharing more on there. I've done some fundraising through there. Please, consider following Balanced Veterans Network as well. If you're a veteran, they're a great community. They can connect you with resources that will really help you. And yeah, just thanks again. This has been a great experience. This is my first podcast ever. First time sharing my story in this format. I'm super grateful that we got to create this opportunity and this for everyone together. And yeah, it's been a really, really good chat.
Yay! First time for everything, right?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, it's been such a pleasure. And that is a wrap. Once again, I do hope that you found value in listening to today's episode. Please subscribe so that each new episode is waiting for you in your podcast library. Like it, share it with a friend, share it with your social media, and help me get this message out far and wide this year. I personally found Sean's story to be incredibly inspiring, powerful, and raw, and I really love what he is up to in the world these days. As he said, it took a big challenge and became an opportunity, and we all get to take these big challenges and make them opportunities if we desire. Please remember to never give up hope. There is always someone to reach out to if you feel alone. And I know I haven't done any official challenges yet for the new year, but let's do an unofficial challenge. If you're one of those people who always say you don't have a green thumb, give yourself another try. Go get one tiny little house plant, put it in a window, give it some regular water and lots of love, and just see what's possible, because you might surprise yourself. And until next time, make this week great.